Welcome back. Today I want to invite you to sit down, take a deep breath, and listen to a story that will probably make your heart ache a few times. Have you ever wondered what would happen if a beautiful friendship, a friendship that has lasted for many years, suddenly broke apart because of an unforgivable secret? And if that secret was not only related to betrayal, but also touched the fragile line between desire, loneliness, and forbidden love, then what would you think? Tonight's story begins with a young woman longing to be loved, but caught up in a relationship that took her life to the darkest path. That man is none other than the father of her best friend. This is not only a story about wrong love, but also a story about loss, regret, and the journey to stand up from indelible mistakes. So, are you ready to join me to step into this world full of darkness, but also glittering with bloody lessons? If you're ready, sit still, relax your mind, and listen to each whisper as if this is a secret just for you. My name is Sarah. I was 23 when it all started. And I remember the moment I crossed the line. Not because I was drunk, nor because I was scared. In fact, I was completely sober. I was standing in Calvin's office. The air was filled with the scent of his cologne. The door closed behind me. The desk lamp cast a soft yellow light on the leather sofa, casting a veil of mystery over the familiar room. My legs were shaken not because I was nervous, but because of the heat that was spreading through my body. When Calvin walked up behind me, I didn't flinch. When his hand touched my back, I didn't flinch. And then his voice rang out, low, steady, almost reverent. "Let me take care of you." I didn't reply. I let the silence speak for me. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't forced. I wasn't anyone's victim. I just stopped pretending I didn't want it. His hands were slow, careful. He didn't rush. He just gently pulled my dress down as if he were learning to memorize the figure of a little girl who had run around in his kitchen, now grown up open-hearted. When Calvin's lips touched the soft skin on the inside of my thigh, I knew. From that moment on, there was no turning back. Not for him, nor for me. The strange thing was, I didn't enter Calvin's life as a secret. I was already too familiar in that house. I was his daughter, Terry's best friend. We had been together since high school, sleepovers, sharing heartbreaks, trips to the beach, with laughter that filled the sky. Terry was different from me. She was strong, always smiling brightly, never doubting her own worth. I admired that. Maybe a part of me wanted to live like her, confident and radiant. And Calvin, he was always there. Quiet, reserved, but his eyes saw more than we care to admit. After his wife Terry's mother died, Calvin changed. He became more subdued, more gentle, like a house with only one light. I didn't think much of him then, until my world began to fall apart. I dropped out of nursing school because I couldn't afford it. I worked double shifts at a diner on Highway 280, sleeping at Terry's house more than I did in my old apartment. One night, I sat on Terry's back porch, my hand shaking as I held the rent notice. I didn't hear him until he sat down next to me. He didn't ask anything, just his usual silence. Then after a long pause, he said, "You're sinking, Sarah. Let me throw you a rope." And so he paid my rent that month, and the month after. Then he gave me a used car from his yard. Not fancy, but good enough to run. Before I knew it, I was working in his office, answering phones, filing papers. Enough to feel like I was starting my life over again. And most importantly, he never asked for anything. At first, maybe that's why I didn't see it coming. Or maybe I didn't want to see it. That night, the office was closed. I sat alone with my husband, the rain tapping softly on the glass. A familiar silence until the pen in my hand fell to the floor. I bent down to pick it up, and when I looked up, Calvin was right behind me. I didn't even hear the door. He was standing very close. The warmth of his body touched me, and his breath fanned against the back of my neck, warm trembling, as if carrying a question he hadn't dared to ask out loud. Then he whispered low and slow, "You're beautiful, Sarah." I froze. Not because I didn't understand, but because I understood too well. For the first time, he had crossed a line that should never have been crossed. And I didn't stop him. I turned, half expecting him to laugh, to pretend it had just slipped out. But his hand was on my waist. Not roughly, not hastily, but gently, carefully, as if he were waiting for me to say no, but I didn't. And that was the answer. I should have stepped back, said something, but instead I leaned into his palm. I let his fingers travel lower. I let him kiss my neck, my shoulders, places I had once considered normal, now hotspots awakening my whole body. His touch didn't ask for permission, but it was slow enough to give me the chance to say no. And I didn't. I let him strip me of my clothes, little by little. Not in a hurry, but deliberately. I let myself feel what I had longed for, but kept hidden. Not love, just hunger. When he kissed my inner thigh as if praying with his lips. For the first time in years, I no longer felt invisible. I was seen, desired, chosen, and I didn't think of Terry. Didn't think of the consequences. Just of his arms holding me tight, of his lips, wiping everything from my mind except a whisper. Stay here. Right here. It didn't stop there that night. The next morning my phone rang. A brief text message. To the lake house, just the two of us. No explanation, no apology, just an order. And I obeyed like someone who was already in too deep. The side door was open. Inside, white sheets, a neatly folded robe, the scent of coffee in the air. Everything was neat, as if he had planned it all along. I should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt preordained. Like he had been waiting for this moment before I could even say yes. This time in the light of day, it was more passionate, more profound. No rush, no hiding, intention. Then he handed me an envelope. Inside was enough money to pay 3 months of bills. No words, just a look. And so, the new rhythm began. The random texts, the escape weekends. He paid off my student loans, bought me new clothes, sent flowers to my job. He gave me everything I couldn't give myself, and I gave him everything I'd kept hidden. Terry had no doubt. In her eyes, her father was just helping me get back on my feet. She even joked once, "You're my sister Sarah. If you marry a rich man, make me your maid of honor." I laughed too, maybe a little too loudly. But that night, I cried in the bathroom. At first, the guilt was easy to hide. I carried it like a light scent, a faint scent only the most observant could detect. Calvin was different. He said I made him feel alive again. That after losing his wife, he never thought he would want anyone like this again, and I wanted to believe him. I had to, because if I didn't, then what would I be? But nothing is sweet forever. What used to make me tremble with excitement gradually became strings that bound me. Calvin began to change. He asked me where I went, who I talked to, who I texted. The questions sounded like concern at first, but there was a scrutinizing look in his eyes. One night, when I leaned my head on his shoulder, Calvin said something that seemed offhand. "Terry asks too many questions. He's getting too close. You should keep your distance." I laughed, thinking he was suspicious. But then the next time Terry asked me out, I hesitated. I said I was busy, overwhelmed, and needed to study more. She didn't suspect a thing, just hugged me and joked, "Sarah, don't tell me you're sleeping with my dad." She laughed out loud like it was the funniest thing in the world. I laughed too, but my heart stopped. That night, I turned to Calvin and said that maybe we should slow down a bit. He didn't snap, but the atmosphere in the room changed. "After all I've done for you?" He asked, his voice low and steady like honed steel. He opened a drawer and took out a thin box. Inside was an exquisite diamond bracelet, something that was not easily returned. He put it on my wrist himself as a promise, or a warning. "You can't leave me, Sarah." And I didn't leave. I convinced myself that I was still making a choice. But deep down I knew that choice was no longer mine. A week later, Terry invited me to dinner. There were only 3 of us, her, me, and her father. I stood outside the door for a long time, breathing deeply to calm my racing heart. Everything in the house was the same. Calvin at the head of the table, Terry pouring wine, the familiar smell of food from the kitchen filling the room. Everything seemed so normal. I thought I was dreaming, but then under the table, Calvin's foot found mine. A slow, possessive touch. I almost dropped the fork from my hand. Terry didn't notice. She was smiling, talking about a new co-worker. Then suddenly, she turned to me, her eyes shining. "Dad, remember that time Sarah stayed late at work? What were you 2 doing that took so long?" The air was thick. I felt like my breath was being taken away. Calvin didn't blink. He replied nonchalantly, "Just paperwork, invoices, taxes." He looked straight into my eyes, a look like a tight rope, reminding me that one wrong word, everything would collapse. I smiled, nodded agreeing, and in my heart, I whispered to myself, "This is not a lie. This is survival. It couldn't be hidden forever." 2 weeks later, it hit like a storm. I was at Calvin's house, fresh out of the shower, still wrapped in a towel, drying my hair in front of the mirror. The bracelet he'd given me glistened in the water. Outside, Calvin sat, half-dressed, staring at his phone, looking like any other man starting his day. I should have felt comforted. I should have felt special. Instead, I felt empty, like I was just playing a part in a play that didn't belong to me. I opened my mouth. I wanted to say I can't go on. But before I could say anything, my phone rang. It was from Terry. "We need to talk now." I held my breath. Then it rang. Her name flashed across the screen. I picked it up. Terry's voice was shaky and cold. I looked through Dad's phone. "Sarah." I saw it all. Text messages, pictures, hotel receipts. "You were in Dad's bed." I was stunned. No excuses, no denials, just the truth. Naked, dirty, undeniable. "You're my best friend, my sister, and you betrayed me behind my back like that." Her voice trailed off, then stopped. Beep, hang up. That was the last time I heard Terry's voice. She blocked me, unfollowed me, posted a vague status online, enough for her friends to gossip. Rumors spread faster than fire. I lost everything. Friends turned their backs. Co-workers whispered. Job opportunities disappeared. And Calvin, he changed too. The calls became less frequent, then disappeared altogether. He said he needed to protect his reputation, told me to stay away. "Not now," he said. And so, the money ran it out. The gifts disappeared. No more lake house, no more midnight text messages. Just a cold distance, as if it had never happened. Maybe for him it had never happened. But for me, it had been the world. I hit rock bottom a month later, back at the same diner, picking up tips from greasy tables, wiping down smudged menus. No degrees, no best friends, no more man, just silence and lingering shame. But then something strange happened. That shame didn't weigh me down forever. It became motivation. I went back to school earning every penny myself this time. No more gifts, no more false protections. I found a cheap therapist who accepted my payment in gift cards just so I could have a place to talk. From whispering, I learned to write it down, then tell it out loud without shying away. Not as a victim, but as a woman who had ruined her life and cleaned up after herself. Calvin, I stopped seeing him as a wound. He was himself, sexy, powerful, lonely. Maybe he did care in his own twisted way. But in the end, I understood one thing. He was just looking for a savior. And neither of us knew how to do it right. I blame myself more than he does. For staying when I should have left. For staying silent when I should have spoken. For betraying a close friend, someone I was supposed to protect. For letting myself be seen in a man's eyes, but only in the dark. I will carry that with me. Not forever, but long enough to remember the price I paid. And this is what I learned. If someone reaches out to save you, but only in secret, beware, because what they might take is your soul. If someone offers you everything, but asks you to disappear, ask yourself, what are you really giving up? And never ever betray someone who will fight for you, only to be desired by someone who wouldn't hold your hand in broad daylight. This is my story. It's not neat, it's not pretty, but it's true. I never thought I'd be the girl who slept with my best friend's dad. I never thought I'd lose everything to a man who never intended to keep me. But you know what? Life isn't about the lines we swore we'd never cross. It's about who we become after we've crossed them. And I am now someone who tells the story even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. If you're listening and you've ever confused attention with love, I see you. If you've ever stayed too long because being seen seemed better than being safe, I see you too. If you've been keeping a secret, thinking no one will understand, take this as a sign to let it go. Write it down, say it, tell it. Because the worst part isn't what you did. It's the silence you have to live with afterward. Leave it in the comments if you've been through something similar. And let me know. What do you think? Was I wrong from the start? Or did Calvin plan it all? Let's have an honest conversation. No judgment, no pretense. If the story resonates with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's your presence that keeps these stories alive, so people like me know they're not alone. And before you go to sleep tonight, remember, be gentle with yourself, especially when you're not proud of who you used to be. Because healing doesn't come from running away. It comes from facing it and choosing to tell it, no matter how shaky your voice is.